by the spending in the situation, and the whole thing just had to stop before it even more catastrophically fell apart. And as it was, it did a huge amount of damage to Lola as a company. So I can't see any way to continue unless there was just some magical infinite source of money that could be poured into it, which there wasn't.
There were attempts to get the team back on the grid for the fourth round of the season at Imola, but that came to nothing. And at the end of April, the F1 team was liquidated, reported to have debts of around £6 million and assets only worth £450,000. The F1 team was set up as a separate company to Lola Cars, so the belief was that although Lola Cars was the main creditor of the team, it wouldn't be at risk. But just a month later, Lola Cars itself was placed into administration. Fortunately, that was a stronger business proposition. There was plenty of interest, and as Sam mentioned earlier, Martin Bahrain took the company over and moved it into a new era where it did prosper into the 21st century. But let's go back to MasterCard for a moment. You'd think that would be the end of their brief flirtation with F1, but that wasn't the case. Step forward, Eddie Jordan. As soon as Lola withdrew in Brazil, Eddie got the phone number of MasterCard's CEO, Bob Sturlander, from Bernie Ecclestone, and he called him up. Remember we mentioned earlier that the South American market was a large part of MasterCard's F1 plans, so Eddie offered to look after MasterCard's guests over the Brazil weekend in exchange for a chance to pitch a sponsorship deal in New York on the Monday after the race. Jordan's commercial boss, Mark Gallagher, joined Eddie for that presentation, and they initially landed a one-year deal, and a traditional one at that, with real money actually attached and paid up by MasterCard. But MasterCard was so happy with how that first year went, they renewed for another 3 years with Jordan. Gallagher believes MasterCard was embarrassed by the Lola situation and needed to save face. He said they were demanding but good to work with and had just been missold a bad idea first time round. So Ed, Eddie Jordan takes pride in the fact that he often landed big sponsorship deals, in his words, on the hoof. What do you make of how he and Mark landed this one?
Well, one person's problem is another's opportunity, isn't it? This was great opportunism, razor sharp from a team that really was everything the Lola project wasn't, because Jordan had defied the odds to get there. Lola seems to have denied them. But just by seeing that opportunity, realising not just that there was a potential sponsorship deal going, but that MasterCard had a problem with its guests for that weekend. So pile in, solve that problem for them, back yourself to pull off the deal and make it work. Really, really good from Eddie Jordan and Mark Gallagher. Great opportunism, and you can't blame them for that because Lola had gone. They weren't pulling the rug from under Lola or anything. It was just they saw an opportunity and took it.
And it meant MasterCard got to experience 3 wins over the years that followed with Jordan as well. So I guess it all worked out. But we'll finish off with a line from Broadley back at the car's launch, which perhaps sums up this whole saga best. He said he was looking forward to the challenge, but he went on to say, "We probably should have done this 25 years ago. We could have grabbed a Cosworth DFV engine off the shelf and run up front with everybody else." Sam, ultimately, was Eric right? Did Lola just try to do F1 on its own in the wrong era?
It's an interesting one. This I've thought about it carefully. I think there is an easy narrative to follow here, but actually, if they had got things together properly from a commercial standpoint and had come in for 98 with those drivers, and Eric had taken a bit of a backseat or delegated, got Chris Murphy and other engineers, as I said, to come in, and Chris Saunders had been given a good budget and been able to build a technical centre, as Martin Bahrain subsequently went on to do, I genuinely think it could have worked. Capability-wise, Lola was no different to a Sauber or a Prost at that time. They really had a lot of the same facilities. It had some of the resources, and in the right circumstances, it could have had a good crack at F1. But the timing just completely scuppered it. And having said that, there would have to have been a clearer distinction, I think, between the F1 team and Lola Cars from a long-term point of view. There's been so much myth-making around the T97-30 project. It was one of the worst F1 cars ever built. Yes, we know that. But in reality, it's a much more... It's a richer story than that, and hopefully we've added to it a little bit here today. It was just an ill-conceived, rushed project which besmirched the Lola name. We know that, and it kind of defined its history in some people's eyes. But like history, it can be revised, and when you look at it in isolation, it was actually a tiny but significant blot in an otherwise amazing 54-year career of engineering excellence and some sublime racing cars. But it's one that is difficult to answer, but there is no reason why, if things had been different, particularly in the timing, Lola couldn't have gone on to be an entrant in Formula One. And as we saw 10 years after that, when I was at the company, it had a pretty credible project on the go for the COSGAP era, which came along a bit later.
Well, I completely agree with what Sam said there. There is also a tempting alternative history where Lola, say, dives into Formula One in that DFE era, particularly if it's there by the late 70s, it can be there for Formula One's growth. It perhaps suited the company size and the way it worked better back then. Obviously, it had to have been a race team, which was actually still very different to what Lola was at that time. But you think of all the quality of people, you can't help but think, oh, well, they could have had their pick of fantasy Formula One team people, Patrick Head, John Barr, all these people involved doing it. Maybe that was the time that would have been absolutely ideal. But I do agree that doesn't mean that was the only time they could have done it, and that there is an alternative history of the 90s where maybe they got things right and didn't rush things in the way they did.
Well, I think what we've established is that hindsight can be absolutely brutal, and it's unfortunate how many of the things that were said around this project at the time aged so badly, given what a disaster it was for its short-lived existence. But that's the end of the Lola 1997 story, a topic that has been requested multiple times by our audience ever since we started Bring Back V10s. So we hope we did it justice, and maybe shed some more light on one of the biggest failures in recent memory. Looking at the timer on my recorder, we certainly spent long enough doing it, but hopefully it was worth the listen all the way to the end. Remember to get your questions in for our series finale, where you can ask us anything about F1 from 1989 to 2005 using the hashtag BringBackV10s on Twitter. And as I mentioned earlier, just because we answer a question on a subject in one of those episodes doesn't mean we won't come back to it in more depth in the future. And Sam did answer a question on this Lola disaster back in Series 1, but it was too big a story for us to leave it there. So your questions could inspire future episodes if you get them submitted. By all means, leave us a 5-star podcast review if you think we deserve it, and you can submit a question there as well. Next time, we're keeping with the theme of a debutant that was potentially underprepared for F1, but this time things worked out rather differently. We'll be telling the story of how a young Kimi Raikkonen graduated straight from Formula Renault to F1 and all the controversy that generated ahead of the 2001 season.
Zou er nou iemand wandelen? Nou, wat toevallig. Want wandelen is onwijs gezond. Daarom helpt ASR als trotse hoofdsponsor van de avondvierdaagse het hele jaar door om wandelen makkelijker en leuker te maken. Op asr.nl/aan de wandel vind je de leukste wandelroutes en bij welke producten je beloond kan worden voor wandelen. Dit doet ASR voor jou en een gezondere samenleving. ASR doet het. Zo, dan wandelen we nu lekker door naar de podcast. Zou er nou iemand wandelen? Nou, wat toevallig. Want wandelen is onwijs gezond. Daarom helpt ASR als trotse hoofdsponsor van de avondvierdaagse het hele jaar door om wandelen makkelijker en leuker te maken. Op asr.nl/aan de wandel vind je de leukste wandelroutes en bij welke producten je beloond kan worden voor wandelen. Dit doet ASR voor jou en een gezondere samenleving. ASR doet het. Zo, dan wandelen we nu lekker door naar de podcast.
He left Brazil when he was just 11 years old.
It was tough because, I used to sleep every night in my home with my parents, with my brother, and we have such a close relationship that we were doing everything together the whole day. And from one day to another, finished. I didn't see them for 3-4 months. And for a kid that is 11 years old, it was tough.
But Gabriel Bortoleto had to follow his life's ambition.
My dream was so big to be in Formula One that I never realized until I entered F1, and then I'm like, what I did was quite crazy, The reason why my father was working so much and not being so much with the family at some points, it was because I was racing and my brother was racing. So it became like a goal, like I need to be a Formula One driver. This is the minimum I can achieve to compensate everything he did for us.
The sacrifices Gabriel's family made have certainly paid off, because he's gone from winning back-to-back championships in Formula 3 and Formula 2 to being described as the real deal by his Sauber team principal, Jonathan Wheatley. Welcome everyone to F1 Beyond the Grid with me, Tom Clarkson, where Gabriel tells me the remarkable story of his journey from Sao Paulo to the pinnacle of world motorsport. Gabriel's success on his way to Formula One brings high expectations, as does the fact he's representing a country that's eagerly awaiting its 4th world champion. So how much pressure does he feel to follow in the footsteps of his idol, Ayrton Senna? We also talk about the huge amounts of time he spends racing and learning on his home racing sim, his friendships with Max Verstappen and Ollie Behrman, and how he has Fernando Alonso to thank for making it to Formula One. Gabby's an absolute joy to speak to. His love of racing and for his family and for his country is infectious. Gabby, it's great to have you on the show. How are you, first of all?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here with you. Unfortunately, this year I have not been in the press conference as I was in the previous years, but good to talk to you.
Gabby, you strike me as someone who's already very at ease in Formula One. The cars, your relationship with your rivals, just how long did it take you to get comfortable in this environment?
I don't know, like 5 races to in the sense like understanding a bit how the race weekend was and the amount of commitments we had and how the sequences of free practices and time with engineers work. So 5 races and then slowly, you know, after that I'm still getting used to it. I'm not 100%.
What has surprised you about F1?
The amount of time we need to talk to the media on Thursday. That's one. To be honest, it's a big thing because we always talk about this, not as a negative, but it's just different. You know, in F2, F3, you basically have a little bit of media, but 1 hour maximum on a Thursday, and then you have the whole day to study and to analyze things with your engineers, prepare the weekend. And in Formula One, basically the entire Thursday you are talking to media, doing interviews, just sponsor work and things like this. So you need to calculate very well your timings and save your energies also for the weekend and still have time to prepare the event very well on Thursday with your engineers and everyone. So I would say this is very different because, you know, preparation is key in Formula One.
Preparation is key, but what about using the media to your advantage?
In what sense?
Is that a conscious thought? Do you sit in every interview and think, right, what do I want to say here? How do I want to project myself?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, not only for myself, but you know, I don't want to say only things that come in my mind and put it out immediately, because there's a lot of people watching, you know, our interviews and things. A lot of kids, a lot of just a lot of people. So you need to be careful with things you say. Obviously, I'm always going to be transparent and who I am. I'm not going to be fake. I'm not going to be trying to be someone I'm not. That's who I am, and that's how I always, let's say, act in front of cameras or off cameras. But for sure, you need to be careful because sometimes some questions come and you want to give an answer that maybe it's not the time to do so, you know, because it is what it is. And I don't know, just need to think about it.
What about the cars? You say it took 5 races, but these ground effect cars that we've had since 2022 are an acquired taste. I think we can say that because some great drivers like Lewis Hamilton will hold their hands up and say it's difficult to get a lap time and to get consistency out of them. How are you finding them to drive?
Well, it's definitely a very tough car. I need to be honest, you know, this F1 generation of cars, they are complicated. They are cars that very sensitive, you know, to wind, to track conditions and things. So luckily, you know, I've been able to adapt this year, you know, quickly to the cars and to how I feel with it and how much I'm pushing on them. But, you know, as you said, some great drivers have been struggling a bit, you know, even if I think Lewis is not doing a bad job, but everyone expects things so highly from him because he's a 7-time world champion. But if you see in Zandvoort, for example, he was super close to his teammate in qualifying. You know, he was less than half a tenth from it. And Charles is a very fast driver, and we know what he's capable of doing in qualifying.
Where do you find the time in these cars? Is it all on corner entry? Or is it just maintaining that minimum speed like you do in Formula 3, for example?
I mean, there is no secret or there is no specific entry. Sometimes you push the entry like crazy and you pray that it's going to be fine on exit because there's a short straight ahead of you and, you know, it doesn't compensate on having a mega exit because you lose too much on the entry. So it's a bit of a different thing, you know, but with this generation of cars, I would say just probably keeping it clean in the sense of not being too erratic, I don't know if this is the right word, but with the car and not making crazy moves. You need to be a clean driver, you need to drive with a lot of precision. You cannot make so many corrections in the middle of the corner, or you cannot afford to arrive in these corrections because these cars are so aggressive that as soon as you have a snap, you are basically out, you know, or you crash or you are in the gravel. So, yeah.
Lando Norris said on this show in the past that in Formula One, the driving's the easy bit it's everything else that's hard. Maybe he's referring to the media, the pressure, the expectation. Do you agree with him?
Look, it depends. I know that McLaren, they do a lot of media, and I also told Lando this many times. Look, I hats off to you guys, because sometimes I'm with Lando and he's like, oh, tomorrow I'm flying to UK to do this and that, and then I need to fly to US, and I'm like, man, that's crazy. They have so many sponsors and things to do. Luckily, with us, we have a lot of sponsors, but we have a different way of doing things. And yeah, I don't have the same, let's say, still a very busy one, because the time I'm not with the sponsors, I'm probably in the sim with the team or doing other things with the team. So it's just different timings. But yeah, I would say driving is not the easy bit. This I can guarantee you. It's very tough to extract 100% of these cars. But definitely there is a lot of things that can affect your driving if you don't focus and if you don't save your energies.
We're 2/3 of the way through this season. I just want to get your reflections now on how you feel it's gone.
Well, I see the season in a very positive way. We started in a very difficult way with the car. We were really struggling to find a good balance, to find performance. We were really struggling sometimes to go out of Q1, me and Nico. And we know how Nico is good at in Formula 1. Has been here for 15 years, great qualifier. Last year we saw the result he had. And we were struggling at the beginning of the year, and then we went to some other directions. We took some different routes, and we brought the car in a very decent window with Barcelona upgrade, and then Austria, and then Silverstone, and then from there on we started to fight for points more often, and I've been able to show a bit more what I believe I'm capable of. I'm super happy, because it's not easy when you don't have the car to show this. Maybe people don't see what you can really do. And now that we have a car that is there, in the middle field, and that we can perform, we can extract that extra, and sometimes put the car in Q3 and do like crazy qualies and stuff like this. And this is always surprising. So that's racing. We move on from Monza now.
Well, has your learning been linear this year, or did it take the Barcelona upgrade and then the Austria developments to accelerate it?
No, I mean, my learning from driver's perspective has been always the same and constantly going up. I believe, obviously, at the beginning it's more of a steep curve, because you have so much to learn that, you start studying and you start doing things, and you just learn and you grow so much in that area. But then when you stabilize more or less in a place that you should be, and then from there on is fine-tunings, and then you start doing things here and there and there and there, that at the end of the day, step by step, you just achieve so many things, and you look down and you're like, it looks so small of a step, and now it's so big, because, you keep doing 1% every day. So I would say Barcelona was a big turnover for us, because it was when we put the car in the right window, and I actually started fighting people, because so far in the season I was not able to fight anyone, we were struggling to overtake in the races, we were struggling to follow closely. So, I mean, until that moment of the season, I was basically racing with Nico or with myself.
When you look at where the car was in pre-season testing and look at where it is now, how much faster is it? If you took this car back to Bahrain now, how much faster would it be?
3/10, something like this. It's difficult to say a number, I need to put the car back on the same track, but it's not only on the pure lap time, it's not only on the one lap, but in the race performance, in the tire management, the way that the car is easier to handle, the amount of mistakes we do less now with this car. It's just very different.
But I feel what's really stood out from you this year is your qualifying performance, because as you say, Hulkenberg is a really good qualifier. Jolyon Palmer once described him as a career killer, because he's so fast over one lap. Yet you really are delivering on Saturdays.
He's crazy fast, man. He pushes me a lot, I wouldn't be at the level I am in my qualifyings and in my racing right now if it was not Nico probably pushing that much. I mean, I've been learning from him, I've been studying him, I've been analyzing data and working on myself. And yeah, has been working out very well, I would say. It has been a great season so far.
But when you look at his data, what stands out?
He's precise, he's quick, he's he doesn't make many mistakes in his lap. His lap looks like it's very much in the limit, but he is able also, when he makes mistakes, to keep the car inside the track and not lose a lot of lap time. And this is not easy with Formula 1 cars, So that's impressive about him.
Is he the fastest teammate you've ever had?
Yes, he's the fastest teammate I've ever had, probably.
Partly because of his experience, or is it raw pace?
Raw pace is raw pace. Experience obviously comes, racing, strategy, decisions and stuff. But speed, if you're not quick straight away, you're not going to be quick in 10 years. It's not that you wake up one day and you're quick. And I feel like Nico has been, look at him, he did pole in his rookie season, if I'm not wrong, in Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil.
2010. And he's been always a great qualifier and a racer as well. But we always say qualifier because that's where he stands out a lot. And this doesn't take out the qualities that he has in the racing side as well. That is quite a lot of them. It's just nice to be able to be, fighting and to be in the level I am right now and to be fighting with a guy that is so quick like this. And it makes me happy. And coming to the race weekends, I'm excited because I know it's going to be a tough fight and it's between me and him and, I need to deliver everything I have.
And for all that competition, it seems that you get on very well. I think back to his Silverstone podium, you looked genuinely happy for him.
Nico, it's Gabi. Man, you don't know how happy I'm for you. You are a legend. Honestly, absolutely insane what you did today.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you very much. Appreciate that from you.
I wait you in the podium. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason why not to, He has been in Formula 1 for 15 years. He has struggled to get a career podium first time this year. And I'm all about fairness in my life. And I never thought that his career was fair. Because I really thought that Nico could have achieved so much more if he had the right cars and good teams behind him, and I don't think he did. And I think he could have achieved much more. So to look at a guy like him that won Formula 3, won Formula 2, did an amazing job in Formula 1, and not getting a podium, I was like, man, come on, this is not possible. Like, if he doesn't get a podium, then what? And then when he got a podium, I was genuinely happy because I really believed that he deserved it. And it must be tough for him, even if he doesn't say it, after 15 years trying, not getting a podium. At some point you even say, I don't care about this and I will just do my job. But yeah, it must be tough. Hopefully, I achieve my one as soon as possible.
And I'm sure he'll be very pleased for you. Look, I agree completely about Nico, but let's bring it back onto you and to something that Jonathan Wheatley said recently. He said, Gabi is, and I'm quoting him now, the real deal. And Wheatley has worked with all of the modern day greats. He worked with Michael Schumacher at Benetton. He's worked with, of course, Vettel, with Verstappen. What does that make you think when someone of his experience is saying that about you?
What can I say? I mean, it's amazing.
Does it make you even more confident?
Well, definitely. A guy that saw so many talents. Worked with the greatest together. With Senna and Michael won 7 titles. I always rate him very highly together with my idol that is Senna. He worked with the guy and then he says I'm the real deal. What can I say? Like, for me it's just amazing and I still have so much to prove in Formula 1 and I want to achieve so much here. I want to be a champion one day and that's what I'm going to work every single day I wake up for. And to hear from my boss that I'm the real deal, it's amazing. What can I say? It's great.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. In today's fast-changing digital world, proving your company is trustworthy isn't just important for growth, it's essential. And that's where Vanta can make a real difference to your business. Vanta helps companies of all sizes show they take security and compliance seriously by helping them get compliant fast and stay that way with industry-leading AI, automation, and continuous monitoring. Whether you're a startup working through your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a bigger team managing vendor risk, Vanta's trust management platform makes the process quicker, simpler, and scalable. You can automate compliance across more than 35 frameworks and fly through security questionnaires up to 5 times faster. So Vanta is not only saving you time, it's giving you the opportunity to land big deals sooner and focus on growing your business. According to a recent IDC study, Vanta customers save over $500,000 a year in costs and are 3 times more productive. Establishing trust isn't optional. Vanta makes it automatic. Visit vanta.com/grid to sign up for a free demo today. That's vanta.com/grid.
Zou er nou iemand wandelen? Nou, wat toevallig. Want wandelen is onwijs gezond. Daarom helpt ASR als trotse hoofdsponsor van de avondvierdaagse het hele jaar door om wandelen makkelijker en leuker te maken. Op asr.nl/aan de wandel vind je de leukste wandelroutes en bij welke producten je beloond kan worden voor wandelen. Dit doet ASR voor jou en een gezondere samenleving. ASR doet het. Zo, dan wandelen we nu lekker door naar de podcast.
Gabby, how important is it for you to get this year under your belt ahead of the rule changes next winter? If you were going straight into your rookie season with so many changes next year, do you think you would have been at a disadvantage?
Yes, I mean, I would need to learn everything. Obviously, not everything, because I would have had a year of testing, probably a year of being in here with the team and learning. But still, driving is driving. Nothing is better than that. Racing against these people and being part of the team, you know. I believe it would be a big disadvantage for me, especially, you know, being straight away Audi, first year, everything would not be easy. But I'm glad they gave me the opportunity to develop this year and, you know, start with the big team next year.
Driving's driving. I mean, the 26 rules are such a reset for the teams. Do you think there'll be a reset for the drivers, or is driving just driving? Is a car ultimately?
I always believe a car is a car, and if you are, you know, how can I put this in the right words, but
if you're quick, you're quick.
If you're quick, you're quick. Yeah, obviously there's cars you feel better or not, but when you are quick, and you need to adapt, you know, and especially when you are so young like I am, I don't have any options, you know. You need to drive any car you get in your hands and extract 100% of it.
Okay, right. Your record in single-seaters would echo that. F3 champion, F2 champion in consecutive years. What about a Brazilian stock car? I was looking at your racing record. Were you immediately quick in that when you did it, when you raced it?
Look, I'm gonna be honest. I was very quick at it, but I didn't know how to race because I always raced my whole life in open wheels. And, you know, you cannot touch wheels in Formula 1. As soon as you touch, you have a puncture or something. In stock car, they are great drivers there, man. Like, the level, it's insane in that series. Obviously, we have so many stock car drivers that come to race in Europe, and they win Le Mans and Daytona and things like this. So the level is crazy. I went there, I was quick, I was happy. And then in the start, I remember I brake. I had 3 guys on the left, 3 guys on the right, 1 guy almost jumping over me, and just banging wheels and everything. And I was like, man, this is crazy.
I think the sim helps you young guys now a lot. Something that wasn't available 25 years ago to drivers. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, sim is for me key. I love sim. You know, it's a passion. It's not only a tool of work, but I'm passionate about it. You know, I love going back home on a Sunday night after the race and sit in my sim and drive.
On Sunday night after a race?
Yeah. Like Sunbirds. You know, I came back Sunday night.
And then went straight on the sim?
Yeah.
Having done a Grand Prix that day?
Yeah, but I mean, this is not work for me. This is, I love, you know, it's different. When you love doing something, you don't see it as a work, and then you don't see it as like, oh, why would I jump in the sim on a Sunday night? Why? Like,
thought you might have done enough driving for one day.
No, but I mean, it's never enough. A Grand Prix is not even close to what I do in a day of sim. The Grand Prix is 70 laps. I do, 150, 200 laps when I'm practicing. So, I don't know, it's just different. You know, I love doing it. I think it's very good for my, to keep it up with the speed and to, you know, the same movement. Every time I finish, that's why I jump on a Sunday night, because it's when you have everything fresh in your mind. So you set up the throttle and the brake exactly how you had a couple of hours ago, the steering weight, and everything, so you can set it in the perfect way, you know.
So on Sunday night of Zandvoort, did you drive Zandvoort again?
Yeah,
in the sim?
correlate, yes. But it's not the only track. I've done this year already many times.
Did you learn anything in particular on Sunday night?
No, I mean, I've obviously, you know, you finish the weekend with a knowledge much better than what you started. Then yes, in the sense I came back home with things I didn't know before the weekend when I started in the sim, knowing much better. But I didn't learn something in the sim on Sunday night, but I made my sim better. I made the pedal better, I made the steering weight better, I made the car more realistic, because you can make the setup of the car similar to what I had in the weekend. So for the next track, that is Monza, when I went on Monday to practice again, I had a car that, let's say, is much more realistic than what I would have the weekend before. You know?
I find this fascinating, and I'm reminded of a conversation I had with Gerhard Berger about Ayrton Senna. Gerhard said to me that Max Verstappen is a better racing driver than Senna ever was. And I thought that was a very strong statement coming from him, given that they were teammates at McLaren. I said, why? And he said, because of the sim. If you drive the sim the whole time, you get better. practice starts, all the things that you've just described, and none of that was available to Ayrton. If he'd had a sim, even Ayrton Senna could have been a better racing driver.
Absolutely, but back in the time, even data was very limited. Sim, you didn't have the live onboards and things. So the Formula One world evolved a lot in the last 30 years, and it's natural that a new generation will get more data, more information to improve comparing to, let's say, the older drivers. This doesn't make them worse or better than us. I get fascinated about Senna, and I always say it, is that Senna, for me, was ahead of his generation. So it's like if he was today ahead of the sim generation, in the sense like he would be in a step ahead in 10 years. In 10 years, people would be doing things that he was doing already 10 years before. So that's what I find fascinating about him, because he was the game changer. It's the same as Michael Schumacher. You know, when you hear histories about him, he was a game changer in many topics. You know, in the physical condition, you know, he was putting the bar up. You know, he was setting things in another level. And that's what I find fascinating about Senna, Schumacher, and, for example, Max with the sim. I think he was the first real driver to get the sim things very serious. Even if nowadays in the grid there is still, I think 90% of the grid doesn't do sim at home, but they do a lot in the factory, you know, but they don't do it at home. But I don't know, maybe in 10 years, maybe no, I'm quite sure in 10 years, you will see drivers here sitting that they're going to be nerds, talking about sim and playing the whole day at home, because that's what they grow up with, you know.
How much have you studied Senna? Because he had that very unique throttle application, didn't he? When he used to bop, 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 bop.
I've asked so many people about that already.
Have you tried it on one of these? Have you tried
It
it?
doesn't work, you know, there's no turbo lag or anything with these F1 cars recently, but it wouldn't work. You know, we have the differential of the car that it's linked with the throttle, so if you hit the throttle, the diff locks and everything. So it wouldn't work in nowadays car, but it worked for him back in the time. And I asked so many people that used to work with him back in the time, why did he do that? And they explained me, you know, for the
turbo
RPM.
lag, right?
Yeah, turbo lag plus the RPMs, you know, he never wanted to let it drop so much, so he wanted to keep it high, and the turbo, you know, working for when he goes on power, he has a very good exit. So it was something that he was the only one able to do.
For all of this sim conversation we're having, is there a little bit of you that wishes there was more on-track testing?
Absolutely. Yes.
Because there's no replacement for doing it for real, right?
I mean, sim is the replacement, trying to replace the test we cannot have in real life. But if we could choose between, do you prefer doing sim or the amount of days you do in the sim in the real track, 100% real track? I mean, sim is just good because we don't have time on track. But that's the only reason why we do it.
And you could try some really interesting things on track that maybe you don't try in the sim. Tell me if I'm wrong, but Mika Hakkinen once, when he was at McLaren, tried a hand throttle because he believed it was a shorter distance between your hand and your brain than your foot and your brain. So he wanted to try to see if it was better using a hand throttle. Just crazy stuff like
That's
that.
interesting. Yes, but you are also able to test this nowadays in the sim.
I suppose you can. It's kind of actually much easier, isn't
But
it?
what you cannot test is like, I don't know, aero development that you do in your car. You cannot, like, you can put it in the sim, but how much can you rely on that? You know, maybe it's not 100% accurate, but when you put in the real track is the real thing, you know? So what happens there is going to be in the race weekend. Plus, like, in the sim, we have very good track models and car models, but they are never 100% accurate. They are close to it, but like tracks like Zandvoort, you know, that is a very banking T3. It doesn't exist any sim that gives you the feeling of how much banking there is in that corner in real life. You know, you don't feel the G-forces, you don't feel a lot of things that you do in real life. So that's only in the real life feeling you have.
Yeah. Is there a crazy bit of technology that you would like to try in Formula One? A bit like Mika and his hand throttle?
Well, you got me with this question because I never stopped to... Maybe I give you at the end of the show, like at the end of the podcast, we talk about it. I will think about it.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because
there's a lot of things that could have been tried.
I sometimes think if the FIA didn't regulate Formula One to the extent that it has to for safety reasons, where would the cars be now?
I don't think drivers would be able to drive the cars. That's the reality.
You'd be blacking out because the G-force is too high.
You would pass out, man. In the middle of the corner, G-force would kill you.
Tell us a little bit more about Senna, if you would. You have his helmet colours as part of your colour scheme. Why have you done that?
Well, it's a mix of Senna and Brazil. Obviously, you know, it's Senna colors because he got famous using them. He's my idol. So last year in F2, I had a helmet that was red and sorry, it was orange and black, if I'm not wrong, something like this. And then I said, for 30 years of Senna death, I'm gonna do a tribute to him and make a helmet in his colors with Senna logo together with the family. So they approved and they said, absolutely, we would love to, you know, it's amazing from your side to do this in the Imola event. So I decided to do it. It brought me luck. I did pole, and you know, I got my podium. I'm not sure it was my first podium, probably it was, of the season. And I decided to stick to that helmet because a lot of Brazilians got in love with it, and I got in love with it. I was like, why didn't I use the colors of my country earlier? You know, I represent Brazil, like I should be using it. So I decided to use it, and this year I stick to it as a, let's say, Brazilian flag colors plus obviously Senna. That was the reason why I did it. And yeah, I'm so happy that I'm able to use it like this.
And the family and Viviani, as you say, they were very supportive of you using the colours.
Yes, they were 100%. They were in Imola, and we took many pictures together, and I was so glad, you know, because I mean, it's the family of my idol being there, happy that I'm using something for him, you know, like a boy's dream.
Tell us a little bit about Brazil and any pressure you might feel from home, because it's been a while since you've had a full-time Formula One driver, Massa being the last one who ended his career in 2017. Is there pressure? Do you feel it?
There is pressure, obviously, like any other country. You know, obviously Brazil probably a bit more than England, because England has had many drivers for many years, champions and everything. For us, I believe Brazilians are so emotional. They are so in love with the sport, and they want Brazil to be in a high that any athletes in Formula One, in tennis or whatever, they start following you and they are like, okay, you need to be the next one. And they put this pressure on you, and I take it as a positive because it's a lot of support I get from Brazil. But also, you know, when you have a tough race, sometimes there is people that, you know, go after you and they're like criticizing you. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's part of the job. It's going to be always like this. We have love and we love people that doesn't give you love, and it's normal. But that's, I said this already before, and that's what I love about Brazil, because we are emotional, we are honest, we are normally not fake, you know, whatever we feel, we put it out, and that's it. And I know that many of these people that may be criticized, they are not really criticizing, they are just feeling the pain that they want you to do well, and they're like, a lot of times I see people like they come and they try to give me advices, but they don't understand about motorsport. But I see in a different way. I try to understand what they're saying, because there is always something you can take about it, you know? So, yeah.
I always felt that with Rubens. I always felt Rubens, you could have construed it as criticism from back home, but actually it was just people passionately wanting him to deliver the championship.
Absolutely, yeah. But it has been always like this. This is Brazil. And because we don't have many opportunities of being in a grid like Formula One, you know, 8 years that we didn't have a Brazilian driver, now that we do, they want me to win. They want me to, and as soon as possible. But obviously it takes time. It's not going to happen, you know, like this. We have to develop and grow as a team, and we are doing that right now. But yeah, it's going to take a bit of time, but so hopefully it will come soon.
You went back to Brazil during the summer break. Did you notice any difference in people's attitudes towards you? I don't know, going through Sao Paulo airport, just people on the street, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a bit different, you know, you go eat in a restaurant, people recognize you everywhere you go now, but it's nice because, you know, they come and they say nice words and they take pictures and they say like, it's a lot of, I need to be honest, it's a lot of kids nowadays, you know, it's impressive. You know, I live in a close building, let's say a close neighborhood, you know, there's many houses inside that's with security and everything. We know a bit how Brazil is, and, you know, inside this place, people know that I'm there sometimes a year, and a lot of times I was having dinner with my family, and then the ring would bell, and then I was like, my God, who is it, no? So I opened the door, and it's a kid like this, 6-7 years old, with the parents behind. They're like, sorry to disturb at this time of the night, but can my son take a picture? He's such a big fan. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, I was this kid some years ago, you know. I love to do these things with people, because I was one of them not so long ago.
This episode is sponsored by Select Quote. You've probably heard the phrase, the best offense is a good defense, a million times while watching sport. Well, life's no different. You can't always predict what's coming, but you can make sure you're ready for whatever it throws at you. That's why getting life insurance is one of the smartest things you can do to protect your future. But if you're confused about where to start, don't worry. Select Quote takes the guesswork off your plate and handles it for you. For over 40 years, they've helped more than 2 million Americans understand their options and get the coverage they need. As a broker, Select Quote's mission is simple: to find you the right insurance policy at the best price.